10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Check. Welcome back to the Startup Zing show. I'm your host, Shu Joshi. And I'm joined by two of my favorite people in Bangalore, Vandana Goswami and Dinesh Acharya. In this episode, we interview Dr. Tavpritesh Sethi. Dr. Tavpritesh Sethi is a physician scientist and innovator in the area of digital health, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. He has spent most of his career in healthcare. His expertise is in building teams that bridge healthcare and computational science. He has also played a very significant role being faculty in charge of entrepreneurship in addition to his academic responsibilities at IIIT Delhi. He is affiliated with Department of Computational Biology, Infosys Center of Artificial Intelligence, and is a fellow member of Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance. He is also one of the former visiting faculty members at Stanford School of Medicine and is currently faculty in entrepreneurship in New Delhi.
So if you're a solo entrepreneur who is just starting up in life science sector, there are certain key questions that you should ask yourself. One of those key questions is who owns the science that you want to commercialize? Other one is how strong is that science? Whether you would be able to defend the IP around it. And products, services, platforms, what will be the applied application of your science? Because customers won't buy science, they buy product, platform, or your services. And some generic questions you should ask yourself: what will be the total market size? What will be the TAM? What will be the obtainable market out of that market size? Allow Tav to introduce himself and welcome to the board.
Thank you, Shu. So basically, I come from a medical background. I did my MBBS, as you said, and shifted to computing to provide solutions to medicine and healthcare through computing. And for the last 15 years or so, we've been working in the space of data science, analytics, and creating value through these and what we do in day-to-day clinical practice. So part of what we do is in the ICU settings where we create predictive models for critical outcomes. Recently, over the last 3 to 4 years, we have actually also ventured into public health and the use of data and AI, ML for enabling better policy making for public health. So those are the kind of spaces that we work in: infectious disease, public health, and hospital systems, and the use of data to enable them better.
That's super. Tav, tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? How was your childhood? Where did you grow up? All of that,
Yeah, so my childhood was a pretty normal. I grew up in Amritsar, up in north in Punjab. And forever since I remember, basically I was enamored with science. So, and I come from a family of doctors. My parents are professors, but my extended family is a family of doctors, and I was very enticed by the profession of saving lives. So that's why I pursued my MBBS. And pretty soon I realized that the science part of it actually starts taking a backseat when we come to the day-to-day clinical practice, which is somewhat unfortunate in India. So that led me to come back to science and pursue a PhD. And I was also very fond of mathematics and building the bridge between mathematics and medicine while I was studying my MBBS. So I got an opportunity, brought computation to medicine, and I was lucky. I think I was lucky. I got really good advisors, really good environment to pursue things what I liked, and one thing led to the next. So I've been associated with the All India Institute of Medical Sciences for the past 10 years or so now, with the Department of Pediatrics, where we have been building data-driven solutions for predicting things. Those could be asthma. We started out with asthma, now in the critical care settings and also in the COVID settings right now. I was also lucky. So one of the first, I would say, computational clinical data scientists of the country, and I was awarded the Wellcome Trustee Virginia Alliance Fellowship, by which I was a visiting faculty member at Stanford Medicine Biomedical Informatics Research. And there I got exposed to this whole idea of creating value from the science that we do. So Stanford is a very well-known place for doing that. And that since then, basically all our questions, after I came back to India, joined IIIT Delhi as a faculty member in the Department of Computational Biology and the Center for AI. All our questions really are hinged upon around this one single question of how do we really create value, not just monetary value, but also social value as well from the data science solutions that we build in this.
That's super good. Tav, today's the overarching theme of today's podcast is about the early stage entrepreneurship in life sciences. And before we'll delve deeper, I think it's fair to say that not all sciences can and should be commercialized. If you are an entrepreneur or a scientist thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, a new early age entrepreneur, it's very critical to work with the value metrics which you just mentioned out, the value that you can bring for your stakeholders, your customers, your employees, yourself as an entrepreneur, and the social and the commercial aspects are very important to that. What do you think COVID has brought to us in terms of the challenges as well as the opportunities? And why do you think it should be one of the best times to start an early stage life science venture?
That's a great question. And I think COVID is an incredible challenge and an incredible opportunity because it has revealed all the gaps that there are in the delivery of healthcare services and the things that we need, the drugs, the vaccines that we need. So it's truly an incredible opportunity to bring more value. The way I like to think about COVID, and that's a personal opinion and a personal viewpoint, it has brought to light the value so strongly that we need to ask ourselves as entrepreneurs, what shall we build for our grandmothers? What shall we build for our families to save them? So, and that's the question that each one in the world right now at this time must be asking. So there's clearly a pull. People want their loved ones to be safe. They are willing to pay for things that can save lives. So, but as entrepreneurs, we should really, again, I would say, pivot our value system towards what is that you are willing or I am willing to do for my family, and then create and then extend it to the extended community that we have around us, and build solutions that your family will buy and your near and dear ones will buy, and they will value. So if that's something that we keep in our mind, I'm sure people would find value in whatever we build and would of course pay for it and would buy it. So I think it's an incredible pivoting point to shift from just monetary value to life value, especially in the Indian ecosystem, where we see that our health systems need some sort of revamping as well. And there is an opportunity for entrepreneurs to deliver that. There are extremely talented people, extremely talented entrepreneurs out there, scientists out there who have the solutions, and they just need to find that real fit, which can create a reinforcement in their entrepreneurial journey and their venture. So that's what I think COVID has brought us. It has brought us a very clear opportunity to fill that gap. And the second thing that it has brought us is the understanding that we need to find long-term solutions. We are no longer happy with knee-jerk solutions. We are no longer happy with solutions that will last just maybe 6 months or 1 year, the time what COVID may last, we hope. But solutions that will be there for us in our health systems for a long time.
Absolutely agree with you. The long-term sustainability of the solutions that we build now is very critical for the ecosystem as well. So if you are a researcher today in India who is just about in the 4th year of their graduation or 3rd year of their PhD, research and building up your thesis, what would be the first thing that you should look out for? Tell us a little bit more about from the idea and the discovery point of view. Specifically, if you are, building a new medical device, or if you are working on to find the new biotherapeutics, or you are building a new AI DML platform which can expedite the R&D process. If you are building either one of three from an idea and discovery point of view, what should be the structured plan that you should opt for, given that we have observed most of the scientists and most deep into their own science, and they often lack the commercialization of their bioprocess research part to it. What, in your view, with at Indraprastha University and a couple of other places that you are associated with, what's the generic trend that you have seen among these new early stage entrepreneurs?
Every research, as you said, is meant to be commercialized, and not every researcher or a PhD student should be thinking about entrepreneurship necessarily. Because there is definitely value for blue sky research. There's definitely value for finding interesting solutions to which may have scientific value of their own. But to a certain proportion of these outgoing researchers, we do see that some of them are naturally inclined to think in terms of societal value, in terms of commercial value, and in terms of benefit of their research. And to them, what we see is that the university systems are not very equipped with mechanisms that can actually encourage them. And scientists, researchers, faculty members, as we are mostly academicians, we tend to care more about research outcomes, papers, and sometimes patents, but we rarely go the long haul of creating a startup. So recognizing that, we saw that trend, which we found to be that not to be conducive. So in our university, we started programs such as minor program in entrepreneurship, which actually equips and trains students, right from their bachelor's to masters to PhD students, in thinking about entrepreneurship and taking that, although it cannot be taught, but exposing students to courses that can help them make those decisions early and to help them find out if they're cut out for it. And then there are other things, for example, the incubation centers and the innovation centers, supporting them, supporting new ideas. So that's all a part of it. But I think a structured curriculum, a structured program that lets students and even the faculty members to really see if there's opportunities, I think, a starting point. And we are doing that.
I totally agree with you. Do you think, so very two critical points you mentioned out. One is the validation that researchers look from the society as such, right? And it all goes down to the different journals, their impact factors, publishing all the research and everything. Do you think the missing link here is the commercial setup between academia and the industry? Often we have seen in the Western world, and Vandana here is she's a PhD from Germany as well, so she may chip in with her views. Mostly every university have a certain sort of endowment fund abroad, and in addition to that endowment fund, they have a spin-off accelerator incubator in-house within the university, which allows early stage researchers to become new entrepreneurs.
Right.
And entrepreneurship is just a mindset, right? It's
right.
It's more less like a job, but more like a lifestyle that you do, that you opt for when you join the new journey.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the protection of IP, of how I'm a researcher and I'm just going through the final stages of my PhD. I have something which I really feel that can be commercialized. Now, if I'm a researcher in that space, how would I go and get a validation around the commercial aspect of the science, whether I should, move forward or not? And if I decide to move forward, based on the different discussions that I have with my mentors, with my researchers, with the industry people, how would I go around protect my IP? And what I really would like to join here is, in terms of protecting IP, one should know who owns the IP, right? If it's a sponsored PhD research, maybe your sponsor has rights to the intellectual property. And if that is the case, then how should you go around share that IP with them, right? Or what are the metrics around protection of the IP? So if you could just enlighten us for that case as well.
So I can talk about what our institute, our university does. So essentially, as you said, I think the first, as you said, there's a lack of understanding of the coupling between academic research and commercial ventures. So the first thing to plug that is to be to provide mentors. And that's the first step, to really encourage mentorship from people who have been there, done that, and to have routine mentorship right early on in the careers of students made available. So that's something that we have very consciously, the leadership of the institute has very consciously decided. And even at the faculty level, I think we are one of the very first universities in the country where the leadership took a decision that the faculty members may choose to be evaluated for entrepreneurship. Typical evaluations happen on research and teaching. So we were one of the first institutes, I believe, where we said that no, if a faculty member is really, because how would a faculty member really go into entrepreneurship if we don't really value that? So the system, the university actually said, no, we value that, and you may choose to get evaluated on your yearly reviews or appraisals, and you can choose to do that on what you did on the front of entrepreneurship during this time. So the same the same message percolates down to students as well. So we have, for example, projects that can be research projects, that can be development projects, and can also be entrepreneurship projects. So especially in the program that we have, the ENT, the Entrepreneurship Minor Program, we require that at least one semester should be an entrepreneurial semester in which you need to either apprentice at some startup, and it has to be a startup with less than 5 people or less than 7 people. So we try to encourage that sort of thinking and students imbibing that culture pretty early on. But I think the missing links are having good mentors, which we go out actively, proactively to find, and then to make these connects. The second question about IP. So our university in particular encourages that students, the research that they do, they can actually file for their IP. So the institute files for the IP on behalf of the students, but then the IP is in the name of the students, and the institute holds some percentage. And the faculty members, they can choose. They can choose to either own their IP totally from their sponsored research projects or whatever, or the institute can do it for them, file the IP, in which case there is an equity sharing mechanism. So I think all these policies are pretty open in many places, and we have tried to take the best of these policies across the country. We would not say that across the world, because although we would have liked to pick some things, for example, from MIT or Stanford, but there are country level regulations which do not allow some of these things to do. So we picked up the best things from the best IITs and saw what was working, and we try to make these as open and conducive to faculty, students as possible.
Right, and Tav, if you can tell us more about the tech transfers, how does that work? The licensing agreement around technology transfers?
Right.
So if an external corporate would like to come down to the uni and would like to create an incubation center around, would like to provide you some sort of technology in association with University of Cambridge, Oxford, or anywhere else, how would that tech transfer goes and those protocols?
So we do have an innovation and incubation center, and we are in the process of building, and we have mentors come in who actually help the IP process and the tech transfer. But we are in the process of setting up an official technology transfer office, which will make this a regular part. So far, right now, we have external mentors who help us in the tech transfer process. And the Innovation and the Incubation Center works very closely with any commercial partners, ventures who wish to get incubated or who wish to take up some technology that has been developed at IIT Delhi. And that is something which we are, as I said, we are very open and actively engaging. So we are setting up the tech transfer office as well.
Great. Okay. So if a new researcher is have spoken to the research, mentors, industry people, and decided to go on and build a company around it, next challenge would come in the team building space, right? And I would like you to think it from a pre-COVID and post-COVID time as well, when there was enough resource allocation happening and now everything has been restricted out. How do you think, is it any easier for a new age researcher today to go out and build a startup in life sciences? And maybe you can keep in mind all the important aspects of building a new business, be it business modeling or team building, or creating a board of members for yourself and advisors. So if you can tell us a little bit more about on those fronts.
Certainly, these are difficult times in terms of funding and most of the startups right now are thinking to essentially stay alive until the funds start come pouring again. So that is, I think, certainly a restriction in terms of a new startup that might be thinking to launch their product or to launch their company. Having said that, I think this is also the time when it is also amply clear that a lot of things can be done in a lean fashion. So office spaces can actually be replaced by online. A lot of productivity actually can happen online. A lot of cost cutting can happen by looking at solutions that are digital. So all those things are possible. So those are also opportunities, as well as those are the repurposing, I would say, of existing technologies towards some of those directions. So a startup which is just starting up, it's best that if they can do it lean and then start showing value with as much lean capital as possible. But going forward, I think the teams that are already built and they are now also facing the crunch for funds, I think that that's a real challenge for all of us, and the real thing will be to repurpose. And I've seen that happening. I've seen a lot of startups who did really well in these times, who really repurposed their solutions to health or COVID or something, to, as I said in the very first place, to address some real need on ground, and actually found that their business boomed at this time. So I think it's about repurposing, pivoting, if possible, and if not, trying to stay as lean as possible. Don't go out raising a lot of fund. Try to keep your hiring minimum and just stay afloat and deliver value. I think that's what is the mantra right now.
We are big fans of bootstrapping, no doubt in that.
Yeah.
Right? And the lean startup framework is very famous within the Stanford Academy ecosystem within the Valley itself. And I think till the point you find out the product market fit for yourself as well as the company, it's very critical to be on that bootstrap mode. It allows you to do a lot of validation if you are a first-time entrepreneur as such.
Absolutely.
So I was just discussing with Dinesh yesterday a couple of points, and he pointed out something very interesting about the founder-investor dynamics of how that is changing in the COVID time. Dinesh, do you want to go around and set up the point here?
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Shiv. So nice talking to you, Tav. Yeah. What I want to understand from funding point of view itself is, let's say if I have a product I already pre-COVID I've built or I've started, is it a good time since I have some value add product? Should I go for funding? First thing. Obviously for a startup, I think it's not a good time to look for funding since it's a difficult time. But if I have already a product existing pre-COVID, do I really want to go and looking for funding at this point of time, since there is a scope of getting some funds since there is a growth in digital health?
Right. So I think it's a very personal. I don't think there would be an answer that will fit all because it will depend upon the product. Many products could be repurposed. For example, a lot of things that we build for ICUs, they can be repurposed because there's a clear need for improving ICU care in times of COVID. Products that are relevant to, I would say, anything that is relevant to health systems at this point of time. It is good to go and pitch it in a way and look for funding because it is clear that our health systems need a revamping. So it is clear that once we start coming out of COVID, everybody is going to be looking for solutions to not land up in the same problem with our health systems. And I think if somebody has those products already which plug some gap in the health systems, those may be pharmaceuticals, those may be AI, those may be digital health or devices. I think everything right now has a place in reinforcing or strengthening or maybe reimagining even the health systems, and I think it's all about how we pitch it. And I'm sure that investors will be open to funding because everybody is realizing that our health systems need to we need clear restructuring.
I absolutely agree, Tav, on that. In terms of the pandemic, what has it done is, one, it has brought all the weakness of the ecosystem right at the forefront. And second, it has also created a lot of leverage within the industry itself, where right value systems can be established, right metrics can be established as well. Vandana, would you like to chip in about the point we were discussing yesterday around the startups from if you're planning a swab kit or any sort of COVID related products in the market, how would you go around and do that?
So yeah, sure. So actually, firstly, Tav, it's great speaking with you, and it's really nice to meet you virtually as well. Also, I really connected with the fact that you were drawn into healthcare because your parents were doctors, and you saw that growing up, and it's the same that relates with me. I actually had a couple of questions for you. So the first thing that you had mentioned, that during the time of this COVID, that you see that there are certain gaps that have been identified. So since you are in the healthcare space and you've got this collaboration with tech as well, so what do you feel is that biggest gap that we have managed to identify during this pandemic?
The biggest gap, in my opinion, is to have a connected health system. We like to call it the digital spine. The National Digital Health Blueprint calls it the digital backbone. It's all the same. It's essentially what we need is, at least for some emergency services, in for example, in times of COVID, which is a national emergency, we need a strongly connected health system. I'll give you an example. We helped build one of these apps for the Delhi government and from our institute, which tells how many ICU beds, which hospitals are available in Delhi, and so people can have a look at that. But going forward, that's just the starting point. If there's a latency of information between what is existing on ground and when it comes to the official numbers, that latency is something that actually offsets the benefits of so many solutions that people can develop. So that was a very clear alarm bell for us that. And right from day one, when this COVID pandemic started, we have been saying this, that we need to have a digital spine for COVID connectivity across the country. Let's start with Delhi. So I think, but it needs a lot of top-down, middle-out approaches. But I think if that could happen, and that we think is the biggest gap, if even for some certain protected data sets, it doesn't have to be all open. If for some protected information, there's a clear communication channels between hospitals as a network, and that could be served to people, I think that is, for example, the biggest gap right now and the opportunity to...
basically, lack of connectivity around the country is what you identify.
Medical systems connectivity. And overarching medical system connectivity.
Okay, right. And like coming to, so I think Shu had also mentioned that, do you see, so talking about this gap between academia and the industry. So now, for example, during the time of COVID, we've seen that there are a lot of big players that have teamed up with academic institutions across the globe to sort of come up with viable solutions for this. Do you feel that there is a lack of that collaboration here in India? And if there is a lack of that collaboration, how would you sort of recommend going about that so that in the future, if we are hit with a pandemic like this again, we're not in the same situation?
There is certainly, I would say, a lack of the partnerships between the bigger partners, the bigger commercial ventures, and the academic institutes. So, if we would have loved for things to happen the way they happen at Cambridge, at MIT, Stanford, and the major players. But having said that, the CSR. We at least on the intent side of things, I think the CSR from a lot of commercial companies, the corporations, has been routed towards COVID. We have had a lot of discussions as well. So some are still in the process. So I think things are opening up, but they are not as fast as we would want them to be, or we would really expect them to enable solutions to be created at a rapid pace. So going forward, I think again it comes down to connectivity. The academics who are creating solutions, having a network that can very quickly. So although we are not too bad with that, we do have that network, and we are in discussions where we can get support. But I think still it could be much more seamless. It could be more bilateral, where this connectivity can be established and can be proactively sought out.
So why do you think that gap exists to begin with, and why did we require COVID to sort of bridge that gap right now? Like, why was this not already something that we could have done before?
Yeah, because I think so we as a society, I think we are just waking up to the fact that we need to create solutions, societal solutions, and value and commercial solutions. We've been doing that, but we have not been very, very strongly encouraging towards, as I said, at least in the academic settings, we have not been very strongly encouraging for startups and entrepreneurship. So specifically in the academic setting, that's what I'm saying, that we have been creating solutions, we have been creating big ventures. But in the academic setting, we need more, and not just encouragement, but appreciation of the fact, and also mechanisms to enable doing that. As I said, just an example towards that is what I said earlier: letting faculty members be evaluated on their entrepreneurship, and not having to worry about will they have a job tomorrow if they don't publish a paper. So I think those are the kind of things that we need a change of mindset. That's the reason perhaps it has not happened in the academic settings. And that's perhaps the reason the corporations are also aware of this fact, that many times faculty members tend to create solutions that are licensed out or take a long time. So I think that is changing now, and more and more awareness about that, I think, is needed to be created so that this can change fast.
Just said, a part of this has to do with the glamorousness of the ecosystem as well, right? And that has to do with an incubation cycle of life science startups.
Right.
A lot of money will flow in if suitable, reportable exit will come out from the ecosystem. That brings a lot of spotlight. What COVID has done, right, on the need of life science and healthcare ecosystem within the country, right, and the spotlight on the innovation,
right?
Why this is critical, and for that reason, I'll quickly like to chip in. We recently we have released a 50 million corpus with X-Health Innovation Labs for connected healthcare, remote patient monitoring with Esther DM Healthcare and Social Alpha. We are also in conversation with a couple of biotech companies out of India to bring in 100 million fund for establishing an early stage corpus structure for India. So the new age researchers would be able to become new entrepreneurs, and a lot of innovation can come. A pure play innovation can come out of Indian educational structure. So yeah, that's super. So Tav, we are almost near the closing time. If you can sum it up quickly, what we need in terms of the entire ecosystem, be it academic institutions, venture player like us, or the government itself, the policymakers, what we should do individually at our end in order to promote the basic entrepreneurship around life sciences in India and promote the culture of original research.
Right. So I think three key messages, as you said, the spotlight on innovation and value is what needs to be done at the researcher level. It could be a student, it could be a faculty member, but think about the value chain for healthcare, and in the light of the new challenge that we have now, COVID, and going forward. Think long term, not just for the time COVID will last. Think about how will you sustain your venture beyond COVID and have a lasting imprint on the healthcare ecosystem of India or even the world. And essentially for the organizations for the academic organizations to start pushing some of these, because there is clearly a demand from the government side of things and also from the venture to really look for solutions that can come from academia. So the academic structure, the academia also needs to rethink its emphasis and the spotlights, as you said, and its messaging to the faculty, students, everyone. And I think for the venture capitalists and the funders, I think so it's probably, I think they have the furthest insights into how this will go and play, and so for them to really help some of these early stage startups also with mentors who can really guide them towards the best possible outcomes. And I think that would create a perfect sauce perhaps for some of these early stage ventures to make it big.
That's super good. Tav, thanks for your time today. It was amazing having this discussion. And I'm not sure, we are not done yet in terms of the discussion. There is still a lot many more sessions we can do. If time permits, we will definitely come back and talk more about the entrepreneurship for early stage ventures. I thank you again on behalf of the entire team of Entrepreneur Podcast Nation today to give your time and give us insights into the early stage ventures. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Vandana. Thank you, Dinesh.